When server farms come rolling in, oh no, they use our water, power, and land, oh no, they say it'll boost our economy, but the jobs aren't there as we can see. We'll all go marching down to the town and the streets where we meet. Dum, 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 dum. The cooling towers drain our streams, oh no, millions of gallons of water it seems, oh no, the power lines go on for miles while the lobbyists just laugh and smile. We'll all go marching down to the town and the streets where we meet. Dum, 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 dum. The neighbors raise their signs up high, oh no, you don't. We will march and we will cry, oh no, you don't. We need clean air and stars at night, not a warehouse full of lights, and we all stand shouting loud in the crowd, in the streets where we meet. Dum, 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 dum. The billionaires are not from here, they take and take. They have no stake in our fair town, they take and take. But we sit here with the noise and heat, our water needs we cannot meet. Our electric bills keep climbing high. Our property values descend, oh my. Billions of dollars, but not for us. Environment's damaged, it's all unjust. 'Cause they're too damn big, so we'll keep marching on and speaking out and singing our song.
All right, thank you, Piedmont Raging Grannies. I don't know if you know this, but their song videos have been viewed millions of times around the world. They are quite famous. Sometimes when you're in your own backyard, people don't appreciate how much you've been doing. And they wrote these songs special for this event. And if you want to hear more, please follow them on social media. I want to thank you all for coming out, and for those who are watching on live stream as well. We're glad that you're here this evening to hear about the concerns surrounding large data centers, and more importantly, what are the steps we can do to make and protect our communities, or make our communities safe. My name, by the way, is Deirdre Kevorkian. I am the director of Democracy United, which is a coalition of local organizations. I have to what? Oh, so, woo, okay. My name is Deirdre Kevorkian. I am the director of Democracy United. It's a coalition of local organizations that work hard every day to strengthen our community. And I just would like to say thank you to all these organizations. And a lot of people are doing this as they're volunteering. They have full-time jobs and they volunteer, protect our communities in many ways. And I feel honored to be able to work with them and on their behalf. Now for tonight's event, there's 18 organizations that have partnered together to bring Dr. Masri from North Carolina Environmental Justice Network here to Greensboro to help educate us and to give us direction on this important issue. These 18 organizations are listed, I was going to say on the screen, but we had a little snafu, maybe at the end, but they are listed in your programs. So if you could all make sure that when you flip the program over, you'll see the organizations listed, and you can go through them, and if there's something that piques your interest, please, if you all know how to scan, follow them and help support them, because they are, like I said, helping our community. We also have a QR code for registering to vote, and just as important, I don't know if you know this, but there's been a lot of voters in the state of North Carolina that have had their names taken off the roll, so everybody needs to check to make sure that your name is still on the voter rolls. And we will have people at the end talk you through that, and we'll also have League of Women Voters at the table at the back and the front, helping anybody who has questions to make sure that they are registered to vote. At this point, at this point, I would like to introduce to you Lisa Harris. She's the second vice president of Greensboro NAACP, who alerted us to this time-sensitive issue on data centers. She is a resident that lives near a large data center, so unfortunately, she knows firsthand the impact it's had on her community. She's also a member of the North Carolina Environmental State Coalition, where she is honored to serve and build off the experience of Dr. Masri. Lisa, take it away. Wait a minute. She'll get to take it away in a moment. I forgot. I wanted to recognize the elected officials and candidates that we have here. If y'all could stand, we have Chuck Hubbard, candidate House, Richard Ojeda, Shelley Hayden, Elma Hairston, who's a candidate, Cece Crawford, Greensboro City Council, April Parker, Greensboro City Council, Mary Beth Murphy, Guilford City Commissioner, Irving Allen, Greensboro City Council, Greg Drumright, candidate for Guilford City Commissioner. Thank you for coming tonight.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I want to say thank you to Deidre. You have no idea how much your sisterhood in this walk for social justice and community collaboration means to us. Let's give her another round of applause. Thank you. First, I want to recognize our Greensboro NAACP branch president, Damon Williams. I think he had another program to go to. And I also want to recognize, if she would please stand, our environmental climate justice chair, Pamela Stubbs, for entrusting me in the support of the community partnership. She'll get me later for that. In addition, we also want to recognize all of our NAACP branch environmental justice committee chairs, environmental justice partners, and other nonpartisan organizations, both locally, statewide, and nationally. Could you please stand? We appreciate all of our NAACP triad units who have partnered to be a part of the strategic engagement event, High Point NAACP branch, Winston-Salem NAACP branch, youth and college youth members, NAACP members, and on-site and virtual members. We appreciate each of you. Today we have all come together face-to-face and virtually throughout North Carolina and the country to join us to listen and learn from the wisdom and experience presented to us today from our guest speaker. Please do not hesitate to introduce yourself in the YouTube or the live stream chat box. And if there's any questions, please do not hesitate to send them our way. As we work together to explore ourselves, we want to make sure that we're being educated and witness the multipleizations opportunities as we all work together to protect the people in the place we all love. All right, here we go. Each of you have a program, and you have a small bio in that program. But we're very excited to have our speaker with us today. She is a lifelong advocate for justice, environmental protection, and human rights, building strong communities through organizing, education, public advocacy, and policy leadership in itself is a testament of her experience that we are honored to have her presence today. As Director of Organizing and Policy at the North Carolina Environmental Justice Network, she brings decades of experience fighting for environmental justice and social change wars, and contributes to international efforts promoting accountability and peace. Holding a PhD from North Carolina State University and the master's degree from Duke University, she is committed to creating a more just and sustainable future. Grounded in the belief for real change comes through solidarity, and she challenges communities to ask, what can we achieve today for tomorrow's world? Many of you will hear me say this throughout the program. I do believe in my heart We all are here because we all know all roads lead to voting. I ask each of you to stand with me as we raise and give applause to our speaker today, Dr. Rania Masri.
Thank you all very, very much, and thank you for whoever designed this pedestal up here. I've never felt so tall in all my life. So when AI comes to town, what is the impact that it has on our community? Well, let's first take a pause and figure out, what is a data center? In my mind, a data center is a public library, but that's not what we're talking about here. We've had data centers in North Carolina and throughout this country since the 1950s. And those have been traditional data centers that serve computing needs, that help us write an email, that help, can you all hear me? Can you hear me now? Okay. Feel like the Verizon commercial. Can you hear me now? Okay, so let's backtrack. So an AI data center is different than a traditional data center. A traditional data center, just to put it simply, is basically a small warehouse that assists us to do our basic computing needs. What an artificial intelligence data center does is it is a much larger warehouse that requires much more energy to create content. So it does not help us send an email, it actually generates content. It is, without any mincing of my words, an extractive industry from its very start. From its exploitation of energy, to its exploitation of mineral resources, to its exploitation of our workforce and our knowledge, and to its work to create an even bigger brother society. So let's break that down. What actually goes into an AI data center? First and foremost, energy, electricity. Data centers have accounted for 4% of the US electrical consumption just this year, 4%. And by 2030, they are expected to use 12%, and they're expected to continue to increase. So we're talking about a tripling of electricity usage in just 6 years. This will cause immense pressure on the electricity grid, leading to very likely rolling brownouts and rolling blackouts, and we know the risks of those. In North Carolina, 80% of Duke Energy, how many people here really like Duke Energy? If they were to run for any political office, we're sure. 80% of Duke Energy's projected demand is for data centers. So let's break that down. From 2000 to 2025, over a time period of 25 years, electricity demand in North Carolina increased only 7%, which was considered normal for population growth. And then, from 2025 to 2040, over a period of 15 years, Duke Energy projects electricity demand to be as high as 60%. So we're talking about 7% growth over 25 years, and in a period of 15 years, up to 60% for data centers. Keep in mind that Duke Energy also wants to increase our utility rates by 18% while they give their shareholders almost a $5 billion profit. The rich always want more money. It is key to understand that what is pushing the data center development is big oil. And we've got numerous quotes, numerous billionaires that are saying, just like one person is saying who's pushing data center development in Lee County, saying, and I quote, "There is a nearly universal consensus that the demand for fossil fuels will decrease. Thereby, he wants a data center so he can frack and increase the demand for natural gas." This is in Lee County. Lee County, which has 9 solar farms, which are enough to power every household. There is no need for fracking in Lee County unless a data center comes to town. Then there's some who are saying, but don't worry, we can just use solar and wind, right? We get the data centers to use renewable energy, or what some call clean energy. Keep in mind, North Carolina considers nuclear power to be clean energy. Yeah. That is a very problematic argument to claim that we can get data center development to use renewable energy, because we need renewable energy to power our electricity demands, not to power the growth of data center developments. And we can talk about that even further in the Q&A. But let us assume, for argument's sake, that we actually have the minerals, the lithium, the material to have all of this powered by renewable energy and to power all our needs by renewable energy. Do we have enough water? Do we have enough water? The level of water consumption is huge. AI operations likely consume between 300 billion and 760 billion liters of water every year. Note the range there, 300 to 760 billion liters of water every year. They need them to cool their server, and they need them for their own electricity. 3/4 of data centers' water use comes from generating electricity. A single data center can consume as much water as 50,000 people. Now, to my knowledge, this beautiful state of ours is going through a drought. 97 of our 100 counties are in drought. Can we afford the water for this industry? Keep in mind, the vast majority of data centers don't even reveal, when they do reveal, the real extent of water consumption. And somehow, 2/3 of data centers continue to be built in water-stressed regions. They are demanding that water for their machines, for their warehouses, takes precedent over water for our families and our farms and our crops. But it doesn't stop there. There's also land transformation. They're gobblers of land. And when I talk gobblers of land, I am saying that the average data center site just 2 years ago was 224 acres, which for the football fans here, that's 450 football fields. That's the average size. The average size. Some are as large as 1,000 acres in size. In North Carolina, in Richmond County, they're planning an 800-acre data center. And in Stokes County, they were planning a 1,800-acre data center. I can't even envision what 1,800 acres is. That means it'll take me at least 30 minutes to walk from one side of the data center to the other. 1,800 acres. But we defeated that proposal. In Apex, close to where I live, they wanted to uproot and take over 190 acres of farmland. 190 acres of farmland. And folks in Apex rose up, and they not only defeated that proposal, they got a 1-year moratorium to pass the Apex City Council. And get this, I was telling my family this. I said, it's really interesting that we live in a country that really applauds capitalism and the idea that you gotta make it on your own unless you're a corporation, and then we use socialism to support you. So it's socialism for the rich and capitalism for the poor. And when I say that, I mean we have 36 states in this country that only look at data centers, and only data centers get sales and usage tax incentives. That means they don't pay sales and usage tax. And of course, the great state of North Carolina is not only one of the 36, it is one of the 14 states that doesn't even keep track of how much money we're giving away. Why should we keep track? It's not like we use the bucket of sales and usage taxes for anything important, right? Because North Carolina is number 1 in the country in paying our public school teachers the lowest wages. And they get those wages from the sales and usage tax bucket. Now we know, based on assessments from the Governor's Energy Task Force, that we are losing, as North Carolinians, between $1.5 billion to $2.3 billion for these data centers during their construction phase, and annually $400 million. we got a problem there. It doesn't stop there, because if all these data centers are built, we won't have memory chips for our calculators or our computers or our fridges. Who needs that, though? We've got a data center. So we give all of this to a data center, and what does it give us back? What do these warehouses give us back? You got it, they give us cancer. They give us air and water pollution. By 2030, that means in the next 4 years, air pollution from data centers alone, just air pollution, could cause an additional 600,000 asthma cases annually. That means 1,300 deaths annually in the United States just from air pollution from data centers. We're not even talking about the harm that comes from diesel generators that very likely could cause asthma, cancer, heart attacks, and cognitive decline. We're not even talking about water pollution, mind you, because North Carolina also has a lot of what, mind you? PFAS. We're in the top 5 states in the country for PFAS contamination. And these servers use PFAS. We don't know how much, because they won't tell us, but we do know that the largest global producer of PFAS, Chemours, aims to expand production of its PFAS materials specifically to accommodate the growth of data centers. And we know that airborne PFAS emissions from Chemours operations have contaminated more than 7,000 water wells in North Carolina. Do we want that industry to expand? Noise and infrasound and light pollution. They generate so much noise. We're talking up to 95 decibels, which is like, okay, I like country, I don't like rock and roll, but 95 decibels is a really loud rock and roll concert going 24/7. Even if it's as low as 60 decibels, the consistency of that at 24/7 is problematic to human health and problematic to the health of the animals also, to the health of the wildlife. If we want to be very capitalistic, it's problematic to property values. And then there's another sound pollution called infrasound, which we can't hear, but our bodies feel, that also ends up giving us headaches. And of course, light pollution. And folks in California recently did a study that said data centers make the world hotter. I know, we need that too, right? Heat islands, data centers warm the land around them by 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit up to 16 degrees Fahrenheit. And it doesn't stop there, because we needed to flood more in North Carolina, right? Well, it's been flooding in Virginia because of data centers. And they also increase the price of homes and decrease the availability for public affordable housing. And all of this is for what? We are being asked to sacrifice the health of our communities for what? Are they going to be producing something really beneficial to us all? No. The plan, according to Sam Altman, who says it openly, is for artificial intelligence. Again, there's nothing artificial about it and there's nothing intelligent about it. Is for this computational technique to replace labor, not to transition labor, but to replace blue-collar and white-collar labor. McKinsey, a right-wing consultant think tank, estimates that in the next 5 years, there will be 400 million jobs globally that will be lost, not transitioned, lost. In the meantime, if you work in the gig economy, if you work in healthcare, if you work in the service sector, if you work in logistics or retail, AI is coming to make sure that you don't get paid equally for the work that you do. But the more credit you owe, the less your wages will be. Yes. Meanwhile, already today in the United States, 92 million low-income Americans have vital decisions in their life decided for them, not by an individual, but by this technology. This technology decides whether their Medicaid would be cut and other public benefits cut, whether they will be denied housing, employment, or credit. This technology decides if the children should be removed from their parents. This technology decides if children are likely to be dropouts or criminals, and this technology decides who is likely to commit a crime. But hold on, let's backtrack for a second. This technology is based on all the data that's publicly available out there, right? If you Google 3 black teenagers, what images pop up on Google? The image of a criminal. If you Google 3 white teenagers, you'll get pictures of children playing outside. It is that racist technology that is denying low-income communities their needs. It doesn't stop there, because of course, what we do need more of is fake porn, right? We get fake porn, elderly scams, and a confusing amount of information. The number of times my mama has to show me something and go, wait, is this AI? We're denying what is in front of us. Imagine the dangers of that. The dangers of that in the midterm elections that are coming up. Increased surveillance, I cannot stress this enough. Big tech and big oil are working together with ICE and the military. We already have Palantir, which is the very backbone of ICE. The very backbone. And Palantir got a no-bid contract from USDA for $300 million to oversee every single US farmer. Yes, exactly. And let us not forget that big tech and AI was used in the ongoing genocide against Palestinians in Gaza and has been used in the US-Israeli war against Iran. And then if you listen to Tristan Harris, he'll tell you, oh, it doesn't stop there because AI can also hack into our systems. So stop me for a second. Why are we doing this? I had a journalist call me up today and say, well, what if something good comes from AI? I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm of the school that you got to prove your innocence if you're an industry taking so many resources. Let us build the regulations first to make sure. So where are we in North Carolina? If you look at what's in orange, those are the proposed data centers. You look at what's in blue, those are the existing data centers. Let's focus it. The proposed data centers just in North Carolina, if every one of those proposals passes, they would be 8 New York City Central Parks transformed into warehouses, the larger than our beautiful Umstead State Park. And if they all get powered, they would require at least 3,388 megawatts of energy. That is enough to power 2 million homes in Greensboro. And keep in mind, that is 1 out of 3 of the projects in North Carolina haven't even disclosed their energy capacity. So these are low numbers. If we look at the triad, here's where we are in the triad with the existing and the proposed. So let's take a deeper examination. These are the existing North Carolina data centers in the triad. And these are the proposed ones. These are the proposed ones. We have 6 existing data centers in the triad and 4 proposed data centers. So we did a bit of research and we decided to focus our research on the largest proposed data center in the triad, which is the one in Rural Hall in Forsyth County, 130 acres, 250 megawatts. I do want to say this thing about megawatts. Data centers are not obliged to tell us how much energy they will use, nor are they obliged not to change their minds. They could claim 250 and increase it. Same with water consumption. So let's look at this. This is the Rural Hall watershed story. If you look at the image right at the bottom, right here, this is the proposed design. You go up at the top, see where it's going to be taking water from? The Yadkin and PD River Basin. That will be the feeding source for this proposal. This is the magnificent warehouse. Think about how large it is. We're talking about 85 feet equipment that is larger than a full-grown longleaf pine tree. You look at its current site status, 129 acres, more than 3 football fields. This is what is being planned in Forsyth County. The energy requirement for this 250 megawatt facility would run 82,000 homes continuously. Keep in mind, Duke Energy is charging us more, and there are people right now in North Carolina that cannot afford their energy bill. So we're talking about a data center that would take the energy of 250,000 people, like in the entire city of Winston-Salem, or the full output of a nuclear power plant at full capacity. How will this impact human health? Running generators for this 250 megawatt data center will use diesel fuel. This is what we've uncovered from their proposal. They're telling us they're going to be using diesel fuel. And we know, conservatively speaking, how diesel impacts air pollution and how air pollution harms human health, from lungs to asthma to pulmonary disease to death. And look at the water. The average household in the United States consumes 400 gallons of water a day. This data center wants to consume almost 5 million gallons of water a day in the midst of a county suffering extreme drought. And we say, hell no. Forgive me for saying hell in a church. And you look at the Yadkin River. This serves as the drinking water supply for more than 1 million residents in 12 counties, and they're going to be taking from the Yadkin River. But the Yadkin River has less than it used to have. Discharge at the Enon, North Carolina station shows a decrease from 2025 to 2026. Let us not forget, we are living a climate emergency. We will have less water tomorrow than we have today, and our needs for water will be greater tomorrow than they are today. What about the Impact Data Dream Center? I know a lot of y'all in Greensboro really are looking at this data center. Well, here's that story. This is their proposed design, their proposed site of almost 8 acres from an area of 38 acres, which makes me think, do they want to expand? They are claiming 11,000 square feet of mixed use, and they now want it to be 20 to 30 megawatts. I remember them saying earlier it just wanted to be 9. Their master plan could even scale it up to 300 megawatts in future phases. But look at this. Look at the proximity of the Impact Data Center to schools in East Greensboro. Look at how close it is to those schools in East Greensboro. So when we talk about noise, and I was asked by several members of the Greensboro City Council to answer that question, how far does noise travel? How will it impact the children who are more susceptible to noise pollution than people in midlife? I'm just going to gently call myself midlife. So we have reports ranging from noise can travel 1,500 feet. Another report says 2 miles. And there's an individual in Texas that are saying 5 miles. And that same individual in Texas is saying that they're seeing reports of a 5-mile radius from data centers with chickens laying 50% less eggs and goats and livestock are losing 30% of their body weight. If this is what it does to livestock, what would it do to children? But it's not just about noise, because noise just doesn't all travel like that. We also look at infrasound. And here, the intensity or loudness of sound in open, unobstructed air drops every 6 decibels every time the distance from the source doubles. In other words, if we look at decibels, it can really spread. So here we're talking about noise pollution, and we're talking about infrasound. We're talking about communities and schools at risk, their cognitive abilities, and their health. And as well, of course, it is water thirsty. Just like every other data center, water thirsty. East Greensboro receives its drinking water from the city of Greensboro, which gets its drinking water from these reservoirs, and these reservoirs are lower. Again, this is not a time to welcome a large, heavy water industry. And this is critical to realize. We couldn't find their proposal. We don't know what fuel generators will be used. There is no open commitment to a specific megawatt. We don't know how much water consumption they even claim, even though those claims are gross underestimates, and we don't know their claims on noise. I say this because I'm comparing this to a data center being proposed in Edgecombe County, where at least they were telling us, we think it'll just take 2.5 million gallons a day, just. And we disputed that number. And then they said, we got the noise down to 60 decibels, and we said, that's still too loud. We don't know even this, and this is important to realize because we do not have a law that stipulates that they have to tell us this information or that they have to abide by what they tell us. So what do we do? To answer what we do, I think we first need to answer, what do we want? Do we want a kinder, gentler AI data center? Or do we want farmland in its place and public housing in its place and the sales and tax usage incentives actually given to our public schools and our public teachers and our firefighters? Do we want these data centers coming in, signing NDAs and not being transparent with us? Or do we actually want a real functioning democracy? And I ask, what do we want? Because we're not alone. There has not been an issue, as far as I know, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that has received this level of popular outrage. 70% of Americans oppose AI data centers in their area, and it crosses across parties. The majority of Democrats, the majority of Republicans, the majority of independents say no. And we need to recognize this. Despite this, Congress is not even dragging its feet. Despite their large footprint, there is no legally binding federal energy standard in place to oversee private sector data center construction and management. This is really important for us in North Carolina because the world's largest military base in Fayetteville is under orders from the Department of War, previously known as the Department of Defense, to welcome private data center contractors. So, what do we want? What are we doing? These are the moratoriums that have already been passed in the state of North Carolina. 15 counties and 22 towns and cities. And the most important of those is Edgecombe County that passed a 32-month moratorium. Beautiful. And if you want to look at this, I just threw this on here because here you can see where those moratoriums are. The moratoriums are the red dots, and the green dots are the proposed data centers. When I look at that map, I go, oh, we need more moratoriums then, right? Okay. Why do we want a moratorium? A moratorium is just a means, it's not an end goal. A moratorium, at least 12 months, to 32 months, which is the maximum that we can have in North Carolina, so that during that time period, we can pass enforceable regulations to protect our communities. Now, we don't need to wait 32 months to remove the tax incentives, though. We need to get rid of those yesterday and take those money. And what would it look like if we actually afforded tax incentives to small businesses and family-owned farms? 32 months. This is a timeline where we break it down why we need 32 months. I can share that with any city council, county commissioner, organizer. This is the legal reason why we're saying we want 32 months for the moratorium. And these are some policy tools. These are policy tools from across the country. These are local tools that can be done. These are state tools that can be done. And then there are local and state tools. The most important one to be done locally is to pass a conditional use permit. Data centers now do not need to apply for a permit, they just need a rezoning. Kind of like poultry farms. Conditional use permits, and we need to establish them with strong enforcement mechanisms. I can go through all of these in more detail, or y'all can check the North Star Data Center Policy Toolkit, which is the best toolkit around. Fantastic. Here's an example of a conditional use permitting that was passed in Arizona. The city stipulates data centers are not permitted to operate unless explicitly approved, period. You don't have to say what size, you don't have to say how much megawattage, you don't have to say where they are. So even folks at Duke University that claim it's just going to be a small one, we don't care. You want to do a data center? Apply for a conditional use permit. Basic. Also in Colorado, they passed this regulation. This is a city in Colorado saying high water use industries projecting consumptive water demands above certain thresholds cannot be developed unless water sustainability measures are taken. It's not really radical, and they don't say the word data center once. Data centers have stopped going to Aurora because they don't even want to tell the city how much water they're consuming. But basic. Now you can go even further. This is our language. No data center shall be approved unless the applicant demonstrates through independently verified hydrologic analysis that the facility will not impair existing or reasonably anticipated residential, agricultural, ecological, municipal, or industrial water use, including water resources necessary to support future growth under normal, drought, or projected climate conditions. Why not? The onus is on them, not on us. But we've got some challenges. What is a data center? So there are bills being passed right now, being discussed in the General Assembly that look at data centers over 100 megawatts. And I'm like, why 100 megawatts? Because they're claiming 100 megawatts is a hyperscale data center, but 6 months ago, industry was saying 50 megawatts is a hyperscale data center. So the industry changes its definition, so we change our definition? That doesn't make sense. I'm sorry, we're not going to go by that. I'm going to follow the state of New York. Very rarely do I say that sentence. But I'm going to follow the state of New York, where the General Assembly in New York, both the House and Senate, overwhelmingly passed a 1-year moratorium on any data center of more than 25 megawatts. Simple. You want to give it a megawattage? Make it low, because 25 megawatts is still a lot. We also need to recognize moratoriums are a means, not an end. There's a bill being proposed in the General Assembly calling for a 2-year moratorium, but during those 2 years, they give power to a pro-AI group to determine the regulations. Sorry, the devil's in the details. Senate Bill 730 is being touted by some as being good on data center regulations, but bad on other issues, and I go, no, I'm sorry, it's just not good enough. There's a press release here where you can read more about it, and we gotta watch these greenwashing scams that I keep hearing about. And again, I've got more information on any one of these, or you can ask me them in the Q&A, but we really gotta watch out for them. And fundamentally, we gotta ask ourselves, why again do we wanna have this data center? We remember AI systems are designed to discriminate, to amplify hierarchies, and to encode narrow classifications. Why should we give them any exception when they're not even giving us anything positive at the end of the day? So no. There's a Republican in the General Assembly. His name is Matthew Winslaw. He represents Franklin. And he says, and I quote, "We don't want to restrict data centers here in North Carolina. We want to have a balanced approach that doesn't affect our critical infrastructure, our water, and our electricity." To me, that balanced approach would be, we don't want data centers in North Carolina. But he goes further, and this is what really upsets me. He says, and I quote, "We see the pushback in the communities about the data centers, but we're very much aware that AI is here and AI is not leaving. We know the data centers are not going to go away." I don't know how he knows that. How is he projecting into the future? When I look into the future, the only thing that I see that's inevitable is the power of the people rising up against data centers. Data centers are not the inevitability here. They're not the inevitability. So what do we got to do? We raise the alarm. We raise the alarm. We fill the press with our op-eds and our letters to the editor, and we put signage everywhere. Data centers not welcome here. We do these meetings again. And we protest, beautiful, lovely protests. And if you're like our comrade in Edgecombe County, you win a primary and you get the county commissioner who voted yes out of office. You flood the city councils and county commissions, and we build on previous relationships, and we're always ready to take them to court, which we can help you with. Not we, but we got friends. We want to impact the elections. I say this as a 501c3. We want to impact the midterm elections to make sure that whoever's elected actually represents the people. Can you imagine that if we had somebody who represents us? We have candidate questionnaires that we're ready to distribute to candidates, and I say to everyone in this room, if you don't like who represents you, plan your run for 2028. I'm being very serious. We also need to divest our funds. Check your retirement, check your pension. Are they investing in big tech? Are they investing in big oil? Get it out of there. File public record request, document everything, and document it on paper, not in the cloud where it could disappear. Join an organization and join a network, and if you still have time remaining, do issue-focused organizing like purging Palantir from all our government agencies. And June 24th, join us in Raleigh, where we're gonna lobby our General Assembly representatives. We've got handouts here. You can take a sheet with you. The essence of this fight is critical. We embody a justice framework. We do not embody a profit framework. We do not embody a lesser harm framework. We do not embody let us choose which community will be disposable or extractive. We embody a justice framework, and because we embody a justice framework, we will work intersectionally. We will work with our workers, with our labor, with our unions. We will work with our immigrants who are being kidnapped by ICE, and I say kidnapped because when you are detained without charge, it is a kidnapping. And if you kidnap one person in this country, no one is safe. None of us are safe from ICE. We need to support our neighbors. We need to be speaking very, very loudly against wars and genocide, and they are ongoing, funded by us and supported by both political parties. We need to make this into a transformational movement, and we do that by rejecting the inevitability narrative, by welcoming revolutionary optimism into our souls and our hearts, and by building a political tsunami of transformational change. Maybe data centers are what we've been waiting for, to make us so angry and so organized that we take this country back. I think we can do it. Here's some critical resources. Sign up for the newsletter, some other really great links, and I will open the floor up for our facilitator for Q&A. Thank y'all so much.
Hey, Evan, where's the mic? Where's Evan? Oh, here he comes. We are going to ask, we're going to pass the, if you want to put a donation to cover the cost of the videoing and for the church, please feel free to and feel free not to, but we're going to pass the bucket, so.
Okay. Testing? Okay. Okay. First of all, thank you so much, Dr. Masri, for that wonderful presentation. Hello, everybody. My name is Rania Masri. I was asked to introduce myself. First of all, thank you all for taking the time to come out tonight. Hope you enjoyed the presentation, and we'll get into, I did see some questions about activism. Dr. Masri spoke a little bit about that, and we'll talk about that more. Real quickly before we get started, so if you weren't walked through the Q&A, we are doing that through Mentimeter. You can scan the QR code if you didn't get a chance to. There are questions that are already here. The idea was, as the presentation was going, hopefully it would drum up some questions and you can throw them in. If there's a question in there already that you'd like to see asked, just go ahead and hit thumbs up and it'll rise it to the top. And then we will answer those questions that have been given the most, showing the most interest. So
we'll go ahead. Sorry, one last thing. Yes, I'm Rakia Ramsey-Williams. I'm here in 3 different hats. The first one is serving as campaign manager for Dr. Elma Hairston. She's running for your Democratic candidate for House District 59. Also here as co-chair for the League of Women Voters Piedmont Triad Roundtable. I saw a few of our members. Thank you so much for coming. And Dr. Masri was nice enough to come give us the presentation last month. So I hope she knows that we'll be best friends. And then lastly, but definitely not least, Dr. Fuller, if you could stand. I was asked by Lisa to have you stand and just say hello. She's our president for the High Point NAACP, of which I am also a member. So, all right, we'll get started. I have to bring my cards up again. The first question that I did see, you spoke about this a little bit, but it was talking about, what we can do, what candidates or elected officials can do to further regulate data centers. So I know we had talked about moratoriums. Is there anything more you want to add to that?
What candidates can do, I think it's different than what elected officials can do. And I think the power of candidacy right now is to recognize that data centers may be the midterm election issue. And at the same time, the big tech and big oil lobbyists, particularly the big tech lobbyists, according to the Nation magazine report that was issued earlier this year, big tech is spending more money on midterm elections than AIPAC. And we saw that in the Valerie Fouché versus Nida Alam primary in Durham. We saw how big tech was supporting Valerie Fouché, and so we see that. So here becomes the power of candidates is first and foremost declare your position clearly. You can have a position as strong as you call for an outright ban on data centers, that is where you stand, to calling for a 32-month moratorium on data centers. Like, make it really, really clear where you stand, push it onto the agenda. That would be the main issue that I would recommend for candidates. And if you do, you're gonna get love, by the way. You're gonna get a lot of love from the community. In terms of, for the elected officials, there's a slew of policy tools. So those of you who represent a city or a county, there's a lot of local tools that you could be using. Again, conditional use permitting is critical. Zoning ordinances, municipal code amendments. Noise mitigation, I would argue, is the weakest one because it's typically noise mitigation. We're more used to it being around parties and it becomes hard to enforce. There's an individual who said the noise mitigation regulations are like having a speed limit but with no speed gun by the cops. But you can do a range of different local protections. And again, the most important one is a conditional use permit. Just pass a conditional use permit. Any data center in your city or in your county must apply for a permit. And in that permit, then you can stipulate what information you need, how much energy, and make it enforceable. How much water, make it enforceable, make it transparent, what are the contaminants, so on and so forth. And you can go as so far as to say, hold on, I will not welcome AI into my government agencies. I will not do what Asheville has done and welcome AI into my police department to increase surveillance and to connect Ring cameras with the police and basically be an even stronger big brother. I will not follow the Asheville model. I will follow the Durham model that tried to limit that contract as much as possible. So here you can play on both sides, how to pass regulations to ensure community protection with regards to data centers and pass regulations to ensure community protections with regards to AI. What about wage algorithms? I mean, it is absurd that nurses get paid differently based on how much credit they owe. And it is absurd that if you are an Uber driver or a Lyft driver, the more hours you work, the less money you make. So how could we be regulating that? And the honest way of answering that question is we need time to determine how best to regulate that. So pass the moratorium, build the regulations with community support, with experts from around the country who put the community first and not the corporation first, and we can build those regulations. Now, if you're in the General Assembly, you've got a little bit more leeway a little bit more leeway, because then we can remove all the sales and usage tax incentives we have, and we've got 3 different kinds of sales and usage tax incentives in North Carolina. We could remove them. There's no financial reason that we should be giving them $1 billion or even $1. They don't need the money. It's like Duke Energy asking for a higher utility rate. So there is power that comes then from the state. You could pass a regulation banning NDAs. Why should you have an NDA? Why shouldn't things be transparent when you're dealing with community welfare and community protection? So there's lots of spaces, and we can sit with you and help you build those regulations. And by we, I am not specifically talking about the North Carolina Environmental Justice Network. The network that we have nationally is large and it's expansive, and it includes elected officials on the local, state, and federal side. So we can really help you throughout this process, but again, let it be guided by a justice framework and not a let's be open for business framework.
Thank you. Next question I'm going to pull from the candidates. I've heard recently that data centers will have a significant and positive financial impact for the communities of color, outside of marketing points to sell the idea. How true is this?
I love that question because I think the tooth fairy is more truthful than that. And I say this from a number of perspectives. One, if you house a polluting industry in a black and brown community, I don't know how much you can pay me for the lung cancer that you are giving me. That's one. Two, the main jobs that will be impacted first in the United States are those that are primarily going to impact black and brown communities and women. Three, folks talk about the revenue that is coming from the counties because, we're going to get these data centers to pay property tax. We're going to really get them on the property tax, right? No. Because even according to the data center developers themselves, they want you to negotiate that property tax with them. And some counties actually abate and forgive them. Yeah, because they need the money. So even if, again, a big if, we get a data center to pay the county tax, and it increases the property tax to the county. If you compare how much property tax that county is getting from the data center versus how much state funds that county is not getting from the sales and usage tax incentives, we are getting pennies to the dollar at a very high cost of public health and loss of jobs for our community. And then the data center says, but we're gonna give you jobs. And I'm like, if the government really wanted to give us jobs, couldn't they decide something a little bit better than that, like small businesses that really give us jobs? Data center jobs are subsidized at a tune of $1.95 million per job. Just give us the money directly, that would be better. And at most, there's 12 people that are hired per data center. That's not that much job creation right there. So no, whoever is making that claim is getting their tooths funded by the tooth fairy.
Thank you. Okay, next question. What are 3 actions that residents against data centers can do to make a difference?
It's really hard for me to just think of 3. Organize, 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 that's 1. And I mean organize through community, organize through labor, organize through your church, organize through your mosque, organize. Make that count because the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That's 1. Make it clear to whoever represents you in the city council, county commissioner, or general assembly that you are not happy with data center development, that it is the rational decision to ask for a pause. You don't have to be like me and say, I don't want AI at all. I don't want them, I find them extractive. You don't have to take that position. You could take the calmer position of saying, look, we know for a fact that the very ones who are creating AI, and I gotta read you this quote because I had to read it several times. We are talking about Elon Musk, Bill Gates, and Sam Altman, among others, signed a statement that said, I'm quoting them here, mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority. So they're producing it and they're claiming that it produces a risk to society equal to global extinction from nuclear warfare? This is their statement. So at the very least, let's hear what the horses are saying. You know that expression, take it from the horse's mouth? At the very least, we need to pause, get the regulations to figure out how to best deal with this. And we do that by flooding our city council, county commissioners, general assembly, lobby day, asking for a moratorium. But we don't stop there because we need economic pressure. Individually, our economic pressure is very small, but when we come all together and we demand our pensions be defunded, our retirement funds be defunded, our 401ks be defunded, and that we actually fund that which is just, which does not include big oil or the military or big tech. And fourth, and I'm going to throw in a fourth one because I think this is what's most critical. We need to have the courage of imagination to dream of a different economy, a different society, and a different political system, so that we stop asking for crumbs every 2 years. But I want to redesign the entire table. And I want to have a dream that is larger than my lifetime. I want us to dream big. Let that be throughout everything that we are doing, that we dream big. We imagine our alternatives. What is it that we want? And how do we want to build it? And let it be unachievable in 10 years. What's our 50-year plan? And once we write it, we can then start building it. And can you imagine what would happen in the United States in 50 years if we are able to build and implement our plan for justice? Let's do that. That would be my fourth task.
Great. Can you speak a little about greenwashing scams? Exactly what are they?
Yes. So there's the powering data centers with renewables is something I've been hearing from a few of the big greens, that they said, and I quote, "We look at data center development as an opportunity to increase clean energy." They didn't say renewables, they said clean energy, which is even worse. It's not an opportunity for that. It's deeply problematic when you take that aspect. The other thing that has been really doing the cycle in North Carolina is this aspect of closed-loop cooling. Closed-loop cooling will save us water. And that's all we need. We throw it into a North Carolina General Assembly bill. Let's go with closed-loop cooling. Very simply, when they use less water, they require more energy. When they use less energy, they require more water in a heart cell. So no, that's not the solution. That's moving money from one pocket to the next. That's not the solution. And then I hear bring your own power because, that's the problem, right? The data industries are using our power. So if they bring their own power, I don't understand. If they bring their own power, are they bringing their own air and their own water and their own fossil fuels? Or are they using the fossil fuels from our soil, using the natural gas from our fracking, or using biogas from our factory farms that are already killing community members in Duplin and Sampson County? What is this about bring your own power? It doesn't even decrease utility rates, and it does not protect public health. So we got to watch out for these. These are some of the main scams that have just been going around. And they've been going around not just by big tech and big oil, but I've been hearing them in a few green circles. And for me, and again, call me radical, I'll say thank you, but if you want to call yourself a green, your framework has to be justice, not co-option or adaptability or pragmatic. I don't have to be pragmatic. I want to demand that my community have clean air and clean water. And since when is that a radical proposition? It shouldn't be.
So we did have a question in the Q&A about closed-loop systems. So I'm going to throw this one in there too. We hear data centers tout closed-loop systems. Please explain to the broader group why the water usage is so high, even with a closed-loop system.
Okay, water use is done in two different ways in data centers. They need it for cooling. So this laptop, it's old, it gets hot. Get cooled, it doesn't. I don't do it for this laptop. But in the warehouses, they need the water for cooling, and they also need the water for electricity. So they use the water in two ways. And then much of that water gets evaporated. Other waters get brought back into our system, contaminated with PFAS and other bacteria that we don't know about. So this is how water is used. And like I said, closed loop doesn't solve the water consumption problem. It just makes it more of an energy problem than a water consumption problem. And again, it doesn't solve the ultimate question, which is why Do we even want to give them any of our water, or any of our energy, or any of our land space, or any of our taxes until they prove that they are going to do good for our community? Not the other way around. Not the other way around. There's also a lot more information on those scams right there. And then if you want to, if you can, I'll give you a bigger link right here. Food and Water Watch, don't be fooled, 7 data center greenwashing lies. Really good source.
Okay, next set of questions, I'm going to try to group questions together here. You touched on the marketing scams behind, putting data centers in Black and brown communities. There's two questions here I'm going to join together. How is it decided where to place the data centers, and are they being placed, I guess, predominantly in Black and brown communities or poverty-stricken communities?
I love that question. According to the data center developers themselves, they decide where to place it based on where they have large lands. They don't care about water, so 40% of data centers are placed in water-stressed zones like Utah, Arizona, New Mexico. They don't really care if there's water, they just look for land. And you know who else is looking for large land spaces to build warehouses? ICE. So just think about that. We're having warehouses for surveillance, because I think data centers should be called surveillance centers, and then we're having warehouses for our friends and neighbors that are also being used as prison labor, where they get paid $1 a day, which reminds me of the 13th Amendment, that we still have slavery in our prison system, and now they're bringing slavery into the ICE warehouses. So the first thing that they look at is there a large land space? The second thing that they look at is there an energy grid? Now, when they got those two, they don't care about anything else. Like I said, they don't care about water. Now, it just so happens that a lot of those areas are predominantly populated by Black and brown communities. We look at Memphis, Tennessee, where there were folks from Edgecombe County commissioners that went to XAI in Memphis and walked around, and they came back and they said, it was great. They had this large, Elon Musk, bless his heart, had this large warehouse really far from community. And I was appalled. I'm like, I was just in Memphis a week ago. How can you walk by people's homes and not even see them? Like, our communities have become so disposable that they're even invisible. Memphis, Tennessee has the highest rates of air pollution in the country. And now they have one of the largest warehouse surveillance centers in the country by Elon Musk. Of course, none of these data centers are being built right beside the big tech and big oil owners themselves. So the main thing they look at is land, and then they look at the energy grid, and of course, when they lose a fight, they simply go next door. And this is why it is so incumbent upon us to make sure that we organize together, that we not only have a strong community. Let's pull up this map again so we can show you where they are, so that we don't only have a strong community in one part of North Carolina passing a moratorium, all those red dots, okay, and then they just move to another place where there's no moratorium passed. We need to get this entire state filled. And if your county says no, go to your township. Get the towns to pass them. If your town says no, go to your political party. Get the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, the Green Party to pass resolutions. Work its way up, and it will be heard. And eventually, either we get this whole state filled, or we get a decent 2-year moratorium passed in the General Assembly. But we gotta be thinking about each other here and protecting each other in the process so that they don't do a whack-a-mole, sorry.
Okay. So you were leaning here, so I'm going to go ahead and throw this question. If there's a comment and then a question, what are the chances that the data centers could turn out to be prisons or concentration camps, detention camps? If they want to build these centers as big as cities, it seems like there's bigger uses in mind, which you just spoke on. And then if I could also throw this one in there, we do see the graphs. Could you tell us in numbers, if you have it, how many data centers are actually planned in North Carolina?
Yes, we can look back on this. We've got, let me pull it back up. But let me go back and talk about data centers currently that we have and the idea behind them. So these are the proposed, are the ones in orange. We have around 21 proposed data centers. If every one of them got built, this is the acreage that we're talking about. But again, this is based on what they're telling us, and they can lie. Here's another thing we need to know about data centers, though. Given that one of the reasons that our federal government and our Congress is saying that we have to really welcome data centers is they are saying we're in an arms race with China. Now, I remember the last arms race. I don't think that ended well. I don't want another arms race. But the fact that they're using that language, the fact that data centers were used and continue to be used in warfare, means that very likely data centers may be regarded by the federal government as a national security risk. Already we know from leaked reports that we, anti-data center activists, are being looked at more carefully by intelligence agencies. In other words, we are being surveilled by our own government as we try to protect our community from polluters. And I'm raising this because if their plan works and they get all these data centers throughout the country in these mega sizes that they want, alongside all of these ICE warehouses across the country as well, it is very likely that it will result in increased militarization within our states. And we know who is the first to suffer when there is increased militarization. Those among us who always look like criminals, no matter what we do. So just think about that. That is coming down the road if their plan succeeds. I'm not sure it can succeed, though, and I'm just not talking rhetoric here. If we remember 70% of Americans, without any kind of talk down to, this is a movement that's been built from the ground up, are saying no. Republicans and Democrats are saying no. Senator Sanders is proposing two beautiful bills in Congress. One calling for a national moratorium, and one saying that AI should be owned and controlled by the people since it's predominantly produced from data from the people, right? So let's push it and organize so we get our vision. But their vision will very likely include increased militarization and increased surveillance. And let us remember that during the reign of Bill Clinton, the effective death penalty and anti-terrorism legislation was passed. And that has yet to be repealed. The Patriot Act has yet to be repealed. Those continue to be renewed, which means against US citizens in this country, hearsay can be used. That is what the Patriot Act says. Hearsay can be used, and our defense does not even have to know the evidence or the charge that will be used against us. Thus far, the individuals who've been charged with the Patriot Act all had green cards, and 19 of the 20 of them just happened to be Palestinian Muslims, just by chance, you know. But who's to say it's going to stop there? Those bills are still on the record, the effective death penalty and anti-terrorism legislation and the Patriot Act. So we have a while to go before we cleanse our country from fascism. And fascism, unfortunately, began before Trump 1.0.
We've come to our last question, unfortunately. Maybe what we can do is, there's some questions in here about state legislation or federal legislation being talked about. I know you have that, so maybe we can just send that out to folks after. And a question about fostering better connections between state and county, and I know you have that also. So we'll send that out to you all and then get you some answers to the questions we didn't get to. I'm gonna switch gears altogether. For folks who didn't want to deal with QR code, we gave you an index card, and the one question I have on index is, what is PFAS?
PFAS is a forever chemical, just the idea of a forever chemical. Why do we produce chemicals that are forever polluting? Hold on that. No, we do that because we have an economic system that is designed to profit over people. where corporations are simply told, and a good company is a company that produces profit for its shareholders. So of course they're going to follow the profit margin, regardless of what they produce. What if we had federal regulations that said, you cannot produce anything that is toxic? I mean, why not? We have all the resources that we need, right? So just to flip that. But PFAS is a forever chemical that is extremely toxic to humans. God knows what it does to our plants and wildlife. And that is integral to the cooling process of data centers. So PFAS and data centers go together. As if we needed another toxin in our waterways or in our air. We don't. But let's just flip it for a while. Let's flip it and think about, what if we were to write the rules? What if we had companies that their main interest was to produce what is good rather than to produce what is profitable? What if we had that kind of a system? What if we had a system where the number one reason for bankruptcy in the country would be we spend a lot of money buying each other's gifts because we've got no budgets, rather than it being healthcare being the number one reason families go bankrupt, when the health insurance companies take more from us than universal health care would cost us? And the only reason that makes sense is because we live in an economy that encourages the profit margin, so corporations make money constantly, and who loses all the time are the vast majority of people. And I gotta connect it to that, because we would not be where we are today if we had accepted this economic system of profit over people. We don't have to accept that system. We don't have to. I became a socialist in the United States because I learned about Eugene Debs. We have some amazing leaders in our history that recognize that no amount of money is worth the dignity of our neighbors and our friends. Let us get that kind of economy back, and that kind of a society back, and that kind of a political system back. Let us imagine it and build it. Let us build our Powell memo, our 2025 memo. Let us build that.
The other thing that we can all do is to register to vote if you're not registered. And as I said before, just know that the North Carolina voter rolls have been, a lot of the names have been taken off. I'm going to let Barbara from League of Women Voters tell you how you can check. Barbara?
Well, first of all, we don't have what I thought we were going to have. So if you would like to get a Vote 411 bookmark from any of the people, otherwise you can look up on, if you know about the voter lookup tool for North Carolina Board of Elections, okay, you can do that. And if you don't have that information, the tables have them. We had planned to have the QR code up here, but somehow that didn't work. So that you could just do it from your seat. But if you grab a Vote 411 card, it's on the back, and you can check your voter registration to see if it's up to date, current address. All you have to do is put your name and your birth year and click on search, and then when your name comes up, click on that. Don't assume that that's everything. There's another step. Click on your name and see that the address is correct also. All right? So I'm sorry we don't have what we thought we were going to have to help you, but we do have the QR codes on the back of the Vote 411 cards, and we have plenty of those for any of you that would like to grab one or whatever. Okay.
That's it, folks. Thank you so much for coming.